Hello, all my intergalactic nail nerds. Welcome to Vertical Tutorial Land. So these are tutorials I've been meaning to upload. This was just before I started recording horizontally for YouTube. So they are going to not be in 4K and they are going to be vertical. But I wanted to get them on here, and everyone has been asking me to do this. So there's going to be probably a whole playlist eventually of these tutorials. So here is the first one. You may hear me interject here and there if I can't stand what I was saying before. We'll see if that happens. My mic's different now, so you're going to notice the difference. Okay, let's go. This is the first one, the fairy stone nail. Hi, today we are doing these lovely fairy stone nails. This is probably going to be a bit of a longer video. These are a bit of a process, but it's not as bad as it looks, or at least I don't think so. And you can always just do this as an accent nail. It doesn't have to be all of them. I probably have about 8 or 9 different variations on this theme, but it is all based on the soap bubble technique that I'm sure a lot of us maybe have seen here and there. I used to be really frustrated by it, and I decided to kind of take another look at it because it just seemed like there was a lot of potential there. And so I've figured out a few tricks to make it work a little better, which may end up being a separate video, but I at least want to show how to do these. This is a more complicated one that I'm starting with. That'll make the other one seem less complicated. Okay, here we go. The very first thing we want to do. Beep bop, beep bop. Hello, this is Future Grib. Okay, we need to make our bubbles first so we can set them aside so they can dry out a bit. Take a 2-cup measuring cup. Really, I'm putting about a half a cup of water in here, and the recipe is about a teaspoon of liquid dish soap to about a teaspoon of vegetable glycerin. The vegetable glycerin makes the bubbles last longer and also helps you to get larger bubbles. And the glycerin is what allows you to set this aside, and the water drains from the bubbles, making them drier, and then it's easier for them to stick on the nail. I like using a fan brush, almost kind of like a whisk, because, it's like baking. You know, if you're whipping egg whites, I'm going from the bottom and just flipping up the paintbrush because I'm incorporating air, and I just want a big flip of air to go in. I do some back and forth with the brush, but the key to your happiness on these nails is going to be getting a variety of bubble sizes in this dish. And can I just say, thank goodness for people's special interest and the internet, because I found entire websites dedicated to making the best bubble juice for the biggest, longest lasting bubbles. So that's how I figured all that out. Okay, so we've made our bubbles. We are setting that aside. Now we are starting with the nail. We are starting out with Born Pretty's Flowing White Light Cat Eye, and this is just to give us a good general background, so we want as much activation as possible. Doesn't have to be a certain pattern, just something interesting, and getting rid of the clear space, on the nail. And then we're going to cure that, and then we're going to go in with a second layer of this, but not cure it. That layer, we're going to lay the opal hollow film particles in. We're only going to use maybe 3 to 4 pieces, and I have cut these. You want these in natural, rounded, pebbly looking shapes. No sharp, straight lines. Don't just cut off triangles or whatever. And it's a pain to cut this film. I hate doing it, but it's worth it because it makes it look more natural and less like you just stuck a sticker on there. And so I am just placing these, and if it doesn't stick completely down, it also doesn't really matter, because in the next steps, we're doing a lot of different stuff. It doesn't affect how the nail looks. Yeah, if the whole thing's sort of coming up, yeah, you don't want that. But if there's a corner that's not quite sticking down to the entire nail, don't worry about it. And yes, if you wanted, you could use a foil transfer gel polish, and they would stick great, but there's so many steps to this nail anyway, it's not necessary to do it, so I'm just not. But you can make life easier on yourself and work with the shape of the nail. You'll notice my big rounded piece is at the bottom of the nail where I have more space before it curves, and then as I get towards the top, I'm using skinny, more vertical pieces. This way, you're not going to have as much lift. Now, this is still a wet layer that we put those pieces of foil into. So now we are going back and we are just putting a little bit more polish over the pieces of the holographic film. If you're doing this on your own natural nails, you may want to use the nail foil gel just to make sure and cure it and then put the stuff on top. Just because this foil, it is sort of see-through, but I don't know if it's not totally curing underneath those pieces we put on. That's just a little side note. Now we're just going in and now we're going to magnetize it. Okay, now here comes the fun part. We are finally going to apply the bubbles. So get your little bowl of bubbles, scoop up a good amount of bubbles with the fan brush, because the goal of this is to gently swoop those bubbles onto the nail without scraping the wet polish with the fan brush. And this can be a little tricky, but this is why I like fluffing the bubbles up before we even start the nail, because I feel like when the bubbles are drier like this, they stick to the nail a little easier and you don't have as many problems with them just sloughing off the side. Now, I like to go back really quickly, and granted, you can't see what you're doing, but I like to just then reactivate the stuff just to see what it might do. And then very quickly put that nail under the lamp and fully cure it. This is what you end up with. Now, I don't know if you can you see those little hair kind of things sticking off the surface? The longer you take to get that nail under the lamp, the more that capillary action is going to happen, and it's going to suck that polish up to the bubbles. That's what that is. I was taking a long time because I'm doing it on video. Sometimes you're always going to have a little bit of it. Sometimes you have more than others. I like to go back with a little pair of scissors and try to trim it, but we're also going to file it a little. You want that off of there. Do not file it too much. I only want to get rid of those raised thin hairs. I want I'm calling it a cell matrix, I guess. Like, I want that still to be standing above everything because we are filling that with other polishes and I need that to contain them. So then go back and clean it really well with rubbing alcohol. If you want, you can also scrub it with some soap and water under the sink if you really want to get it clean. Either way works. You be the judge. And this is what it should look like. We've got a nice, clean cell matrix action going on here. You can see the opalescent film, but it doesn't just look, it's a little obscured now, so it's blending in a little better. And now we're just going to fill these areas artistically with various gels with a theme, which is silvers and blues and some pale greens, basically. And I love this July Lake by Divock. It has a really nice sparkle and a really nice green tone to it. When I'm going in now with these gels and filling the cells, you can see how I'm doing it because some of these little areas the cells are tiny. I want it to get in those cells. I don't want a pocket of air underneath. So I'm kind of stabbing it into these areas. And I'm just kind of going for swoops, like a nice swoop across one area, and keep it small because the key to this is I am individually magnetizing each swoop. That's the only way you can get the look. So then I'm taking the magnet and doing one little area, and it's really hard to remember to do that. I keep wanting to put, a little here, a little there, but then you're stuck with the magnet and you can't get the effect with everything if it's in multiple areas. And I am just extremely quickly doing the spot curing just to hold those particles in place so that I can quickly go on to the next area. And you are just kind of doing, artistic application and layering of gels. And I do want these little areas to you're doing it sloppy. I want it to kind of go over the edges of the film we put on to even further obscure it so that in the end, you're just getting flashes of that coming through. And I am just going through with the various colors and gels and doing a variety of colors and of the particle sizes. I have some velvet looking gels I'm doing, and then I have some silver cat eyes that have the larger particles so they're more sparkly. And all of that's going to get you slightly different effects. but keep it simple, keep it to a small color palette, and then everything kind of will blend. And we're not filling every single one of these cells. You can leave some blank. Like I tend to leave some of the center areas where the foil is empty so that I am still getting some flash from them. And I'm doing, each color is usually on the nail at least 2 to 3 different places, just so there's a cohesiveness for the nail and it sort of wraps your eye around it visually and it all makes sense. And I have some that I use in larger swaths, and then others that I will come in and I will maybe only use in 1 or 2 little cells, but in sprinkled in a couple places on the nail. So it's really just about playing around with the patterning and the sprinkling and feel of it all. And you can also keep it much simpler than this. Like, it doesn't have to be all these different colors. I'm just sort of playing around with it. I'm going to go into some of these Divock very mermaid-esque cat eyes that have a silver cat eye effect to them, but underneath that, a static mermaid glitter that some, like this one is a blue, translucent blue mermaid, tiny glitter pattern to it. So you can do as little or as much as you want. I would say at least use a few colors, keep it within a theme, and also leave some blank areas, even more than just over the opalescent-y film stuff we did, because you want some spaces for the eye to rest. And when I say a place for the eye to rest, I just mean visually. You don't want it so busy that it becomes overwhelming to look at. So you just want to think about it, the composition overall. And this is about what it should look like at this point. Now we're going to do a full cure finally, now that we have everything flash cured. Clean it up with some alcohol so there's no residue left on the nail. And now we are going to take a file and file back the design until we are getting the outline of our cell matrix back again. As you're filing, just make sure you're being good about following the contours of the nail so you're still keeping a nice nail shape. And periodically wipe it down with rubbing alcohol, because that will, temporarily make the surface look shiny again, so you'll be able to see what you're actually doing. Otherwise, it's just a powdery mess, so you have no idea how far down you filed. And it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth, because if you have some decent amount of areas that you didn't fill in with more gel, you are going to have some pockets, which is okay because we're just going to go in with top coat. The entire point of this step is to bring back those bubble outlines back up to the surface, because that's what gives us this really nice sort of effervescent, see-through but gray, silvery matrix that isn't overpowering and that also blends in certain spots but then reappears depending on how, the various gels you've used and, how you magnetize them, etc. This is what it should look like before we do the top coat. And now I am going to do a very slight purpley blue mermaid chrome effect. So I am going in with a chrome friendly top coat. This is the Koopa Glossy. It's not especially made for chrome. I just have consistent results. I try to do maybe 20 to 30 seconds of curing if I'm doing chrome over it. And frankly, the chrome on this nail, it's very slight. I just kind of like doing it. It's up to you. It's not going to make or break this nail. And in fact, I tend to really not even do it on the top part of the nail. I kind of just go on the sides around, because I just like that it gives it that little extra warm purpley blue flash. And we're finally done. I told you this was going to be a long one. After you buff out the chrome, we're now just going in with our last layer of top coat. And bam, after only 13 minutes and 23 seconds, we have our fairy stone nails. Now you can put on your fairy nails and go skip into the fairy forest and never have to deal with other humans again. Ah.